Are you serious? This is torture. You're torturing me and everyone else watching. Wait.
Alright, here I am again. I have been rolling my eyes and facepawing for the past 2 weeks as I watched events unfold. I did not think I would be making new statements for YouTube, but enough is enough. I was going to post a few of my Patreon videos from the past 2 years.
Say, hold up, wait a minute, something ain't right.
They took everything, my cameras, my phone, my computer, all my hard drives. The police took nearly 2 years to look at my possessions. They even sent my devices to the FBI forensics lab. And
kind of shut things down here. After my last video, where I announced my future plans, I did not expect people to continue to make videos against me and to create new accusations. These are people that should know better. And those accusations have no backing in reality. There's no police report. There is no proof for any of these new claims. People are only saying he could have done this or that, creating crazy theories and passing them off as fact. Not only is there suddenly a bunch of quote-unquote new evidence against me, people are still trying to pass the 2018 chat logs off as if they are real. I have shown how easy it is to edit HTML. The logs have already been discredited this entire time, but some people are still trying to comment like they know what they're talking about without having watched my recent videos. The police and FBI took possessions of my computer and equipment and combed through it. They didn't even find anything illegal. And for those saying I have put special encryption on all my devices, I did not. And even if I did, the police have access to encryption keys by Google. Companies give encryption keys to law enforcement. You can read news stories about this. People say the phone was encrypted so they couldn't do anything. That's a complete lie. Do you really think that I am able to outsmart the entire FBI digital forensics team? Furthermore, the police arrived that night with no warning. I was not told in advance they were coming. They took my phone off my hands as I was trying to call my lawyer. And then they had my stuff for 2 years.
Another one. Another one. Another one.
If there was something illegal on my devices, they would have found something and I would be in jail. So I don't know how people are still trying to say that I'm guilty of something, and they are doing so without any proof. Hating on me and making stuff up has turned into a hobby for some. For example, one person on Twitter was saying they talked to the investigators. Another lie. The police do not comment on current investigations to the public. That would be a huge breach of the rules and a crime if they were to do so. You can't call the cops and ask for a case status for anything you want. And there's never any proof of actual report presented. It's always just, trust me, I have some new sensational information. But these same people are openly collaborating with furry-hating websites, so they can't be trusted. And despite all the effort, there's still nothing tying anything illegal to me. It's just more accusations and finger-pointing. It is sad that people will believe anything they hear without proof, or relying on the most obviously phony proof like a screenshot or a text log. They have spent hundreds of hours creating this phony evidence and passing it around, and then creating excuses when the police saw through it. What a waste of time. Next time, spend that time volunteering at an animal shelter and making an actual difference in the world. All this stuff against me doesn't even make sense if you stop and think about it for 2 seconds. There is a reason we have police in this country. They have trained detectives to look at this and make a fair judgment, instead of reading something on Twitter and getting blinded by anger. My first video was intending to show that I was innocent beyond a shadow of a doubt. My second video was to talk about how cancel culture is poisoning our fandom. My third video was to talk about how I am going to not be as active as I was before, and that was supposed to be the end of it.
Just when I think you've said the stupidest thing ever, you keep talking.
But I got several people leaving hate comments, and those people didn't even watch the videos or give me the benefit of the doubt. After my first video brought up so many questions,
It just raises too many questions.
I had intended to do an interview with somebody and answer some of the more common questions, but the person who was going to do the interview with me got swatted instead, because he was associating with me, so the interview was cancelled. Good job helping the situation, and by the way, the people who falsely swatted him are now the ones being traced. People who are posting hate about me online are enabling and encouraging this behavior, and it is disgusting. I am tired of people sending their fans after me. I am moving on with my life, but these continued rumors and videos keep pulling me back in.
Shut up!
Not only tarnishing my name, but the entire fandom is being painted with the same brush. So stop it! There are people who have spent years spreading rumors on Twitter about me, and they have nothing to show for it, and the police have proven that.
I am the law!
Someone even created a fake Instagram and filled it with horrible pictures just to smear my name. For the 100th time, I do not have an Instagram account anymore. But not only are they trying to make me and the fandom look bad, they are encouraging violence and exposing children to terrible images and content. This is not what being furry is all about. This clout-chasing game belongs in middle school. Innocent lives are being damaged as part of this game. For people who claim to have a moral standing in this, you're doing more harm than good. You are not going to bully me out of the fandom. It isn't going to happen. I am a free man, and I can make my own choices, and I will be around, but you won't recognize me. I will always be in the fandom in one form or another. I have not outgrown the fandom, but I have outgrown this never-ending drama cycle. I am disappointed some of the Popufers have not reached the same level of maturity, but I am going to live my life the way I want. Period. If you don't believe me, that's your right. You are allowed to be wrong. You are allowed to fall for bad evidence. You are allowed to disagree with 2 police investigations and the United States FBI. If you don't want to associate with me, that's your right too. Stay off my channel. But you do not have the right to slander me or threaten me. You do not have the right to put words in my mouth. If you don't like me, leave me alone. It's easy. And here's a hint, other furry YouTubers. If furry haters are cheering you on for doing such a good job tearing each other apart, that's not a good thing. Those people are not your friends, and they will turn on you in an instant. For the lulz. People are just leaving hate comments because their friends told them to. But these people don't know how technology works. They still seem to think that the leaked chat logs are verified, but they are not. They think they know more than the police. I have advocated for animal welfare, and people are still casting me as an abuser. It's insane. I have encouraged people with the means to donate or volunteer for years.
Pepperidge Farm remembers.
I am still asking people to transform all this negative energy and do something positive instead. But if you wish to fall into this hateful mob mentality, then that's on you. I'm just done with all this. I was persecuted for years and have seen certain members of the fandom behave in disgusting ways for the sake of clout. That is why I will not miss the Twitter drama. To my fans, I will be posting the next Patreon video to my public YouTube channel in the next 2 days. Please look forward to it. There will be 4 to 5 videos that we'll be posting. After that, I'll be going quiet for a while. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Teacher Panda back in action. We'll be talking about something else today, and it's really not something else because it's the same damn bullshit I've been talking about for a month now. Yeah. There was actually a lot of things that sort of happened after my last video about Kero the Wolf. And if you don't already know, well, the whole Kero the Wolf saga is really just that. It's a saga. It's a saga that's been going on for years, and Kero the Wolf is ironically the one that keeps perpetuating this, because if he really wanted all the drama to go away, he would have probably followed through with his first statement that he was going to adopt a new identity and be in the furry fandom no matter what people wanted to do. But you know, it's weird. He keeps coming back and he keeps making these inflammatory statements. They're inflammatory because they don't really address anything, and he already picked fights with not only Majira Strawberry, but also Betamax. And it's just kind of like, you know, if this doesn't really seem like the behavior of an innocent man, alright? If you're a Kero the Wolf, like, defender, if you actually absolutely think that he's absolutely innocent, I'm just going to go ahead and take Kero the Wolf's own words and say you have a right to be wrong, but there's enough evidence out there just floating around that at this point, a lot of his claims are just looking... It's almost as if Kero the Wolf exists in his own little universe where, like, you know, his perception on things is absolutely right to him, but to everyone else, you know, people can see the reality. And the people that are either young enough or gullible enough to believe his, you know, statements. I'm not going to go over, like, why his statement, like, you know, his most recent statement is wrong, but I will say that, like, it's kind of laughable at this point, and I just can't help but shake my head and just wonder, like, why are you saying anything now, dude? You tried to come back to YouTube, and it didn't work out for you, and, you know, you got chased off again, like, and it was weird, because, Kero the Wolf absolutely seemed like he was just going to come right back in and resume operations, you know, without any credence to anything that anyone was going to say, and that things was just going to go back to the way things were. And that, like, took, like, a 180 turn after only a couple, like, videos. He only posted 3 videos on his return, and they went right back to Patreon, where he would be, you know, protected by a paywall. Although I'm sure that someone out there would probably, you know, buy into that just to see what he was doing. He had 32 patrons, like, the last time I checked, but that could have either gone up or down, depending on the individualized circumstances of the people that are actually following him. I know he was making something like $800 a month, which I guess isn't too bad to, you know, pay for the bills and groceries and things, but yeah, it's absolutely abhorrent to me that he's got any, like, you know, legitimacy or, you know, social standing to begin with. Let's go ahead and talk about what I wanted to mention today. So, a lot of things happened. What happened, like, namely, is that Archive the Wolf exists as a channel, like, it's managed by a girl. I don't know what her actual name is. I've always known her as just Archive the Wolf, but it was made explicitly for the sole stated purpose of collating documentation and any material that was on Kero the Wolf and his associates to try to, like, you know, decipher whether or not he was absolutely guilty or not. And as time went on, more and more material came out and correlations could be drawn between certain documentation and screenshots that were circulating online. And Kero the Wolf, like, he had a bad habit of sort of just, like, as soon as, like, evidence was presented to him, he would delete the source. You know, he would go, like, back to the source. This was evident in, like, a house tour video that he had done a long time ago just for fun, and when somebody pointed out how it bore a striking resemblance to the backdrop of a picture that, in which case, bestiality was occurring, he immediately deleted it and would never acknowledge it again. So, as far as the statement goes about Telegram chat logs being, like, you know, easily, like, deleted or easily modified to make it look like him, yes, under certain circumstances, you can definitely do that. However, the way that, like, the chat logs were presented and, like, the sheer volume of them, on top of the fact that, like, various events in his personal life correlated strongly with the timeline that was, you know, sort of parsed together in the overview of the chat logs themselves, it, you know, it's just no, dude. Like, he, on his first return video, he had, like, some sort of video where some guy was basically, like, for shame, like, he basically input Wilhelm Scream as, like, the name to replace Kero the Wolf, and that had been specifically made for that particular example, and it's like, that can be done locally. Sure, you can make it look any way you want. You can change it to make your geographical location, whatever time zone that is, that will be the timestamp. Or once it goes through the server sort of puts its own sort of, like, you know, mark on it, as in, like, what the server time uses. I think it was, like, universal time, although some things about Telegram in general have changed. And considering the fact that the creator of Telegram, like, you know, offered $300,000 in Bitcoin to anybody that could successfully hack Telegram, I would imagine that the people that hacked Kero the Wolf would want that, you know, and nobody has come forward to claim the $300,000, like, dollars, you know. So, yeah, Iranian super hackers are not really a factor here. But anyway, okay, so, like, Archive the Wolf, they did the whole, like, you know, Kero the Wolf video. They made a 40-minute video basically summarizing, picking apart everything that Kero the Wolf made a claim of. They had to release an audio-only version later because Kero the Wolf actually issued a DMCA. He actually reported the video, went to YouTube, and basically said, hey, this is using copywritten material, and I don't want it up online anymore. And Archive the Wolf actually had to seek help from the greater community over on Twitter to basically say, hey, do you have any advice or, like, you know, any tips on how I can fight this? And it was just basically a dick move on Kero the Wolf's part, but, you know, are we really surprised at this point? Archive the Wolf was perhaps the most damning, like, you know, account out there that really sort of nailed to the wall the extent and the depth at which, like, all this material could be tied back to Kero the Wolf. And the most recent statement of Kero the Wolf is just kind of laughable in all this, because it's like, dude, you've been petty, you're borderline sociopathic in your dealings with other people. Even your own fan base, like, it's almost like a cult. That's just how I see it. Yeah, what's interesting is, like, the recurrent question is, like, you know, why did Kero the Wolf come back in the first place? Well, you know, you wouldn't know this, but there's been a particular podcast that's been making its rounds across the worldwide internet, and that would be the Zooearth and Thou podcast. And if you don't know, Zooearth and Thou happens to be a podcast that's sort of dedicated to zoophiles out there, anybody engaging in sex with animals. And the whole premise of that particular podcast is that they know, quote-unquote, better, that animals absolutely can consent and that sex with animals is completely fine, and that there's a legitimacy that they have, and they're trying to perpetuate their message to, you know, broader audience. The problem is a lot of YouTubers that I happen to know of, they took notice of this and they would immediately proceed to pick it apart, basically making commentary videos sort of like this one and sort of looking at everything that the individuals, Sphinx and Toggle, I believe. Sphinx happens to be the golden retriever, Toggle is the rat, and it's a very awkwardly put together podcast. You have, like, this very much older individual that happens to be very dry, has a little touch of the tism. His name is, Sphinx, that golden retriever. And basically, like, he's sort of just dry, like, very dry. Like, his delivery on anything has to be dry. He tries to be, like, the older voice of reason. And he's matched to a rat named Toggle. And Toggle, it's almost like Toggle's voice is almost like that of a, like, adult man trying to speak in the voice of a child, because they basically modify their voice through voice acting to appear to be a lot more higher pitched than they would be otherwise. Their voice doesn't sound real, and it's just kind of, like, weird that they both, like, you know, the podcast, its substance seems to be that of, like, loosely written and scripted, but the two never, like, you know, they're not particularly good actors, and they aren't very good at their delivery. And it's not quite off the cuff like some other, like, podcasts I've seen, but at the same time, for me, that's what makes a podcast good, is if you can really, like, off the cuff act and improv things in the moment in real time and make the delivery seem more believable. That's just my opinion. But in their case, they seem like they tried to shoehorn these, like, jokes in there, and the delivery just comes off as awkward and strange. But Zooearth and Thou had been making its rounds for a while now. I think I first was exposed to them months ago, almost a year ago, like, throughout 2020. And yeah, the message that they're trying to deliver is that sex with animals is perfectly fine, that they know better, and that the whole name, the premise is, like, Zooearth and Thou, that, like, they try to pass themselves off as these enlightened gurus that understand that, you know, they understand animals better than we can, apparently. And that, they can have a consenting relationship with an animal, which is asinine and bullshit, but okay. That's their message. Not something that I'd really want to come out publicly and sort of, like, put myself out there to state to other people if I was them, but okay. They had, like, a couple thousand subscribers on YouTube, I believe. They had their own personalized website. They have some Twitter followers, like maybe 300 to 600 by last I've seen. Yeah, their broader audience is the furthest in the fringe. That's the best way I could describe it. because a lot of people were not giving them the time of day and would actually like just turn around and poke fun at them. And Kiwi Farms obviously did not like escape their notice either, because they would go out of their way and to sort of like dox them and engage in behavior that I don't really support, but at the same time, that's just what Kiwi Farms does. That's the one thing I could say about Kiwi Farms being absolutely abhorrent, is that if there's any information of your real life identity out there that can be tied to your online handle or Twitter handle or name online and you've attracted their attention, well, chances are they're going to dox you at some point. Although I guess that can bring up like sort of a broader like debate on whether or not that's considered doxing, because if this is all publicly available information that all people have to really do is tie the dots together, yeah. But some people, they really value their privacy. They want to distance themselves from their online activities as much as possible, and as such they will, you know, they consider that doxing. Anyway, that's not really a debate for this particular channel right here, right now, but we're just going to go ahead and move on. Why do I mention the Zeroth and Thou podcast? So what I'm about to tell you is not with any absolute certainty. I do not have any proof. I do not have any like hard evidence to support this one way or the other. But I will tell you, like, what I'm going to tell the rest of you all is that Toggle apparently did something pretty noteworthy that attracted a lot of attention towards them. Now, I do know that, like, what they look like, I know some other things about them that I wish I hadn't, but I do now, whatever. But they attracted a lot of attention towards them, and that Kero the Wolf, supposedly, the story goes, he stuck his neck out for Toggle and decided to make the entire, like, coming back to YouTube and resuming operations and basically getting the fandom in a tizzy, because he was going to try to attract as much attention, all eyes on him, to create a distraction so that Toggle could fade back into the darkness. Now, that's a very interesting story, but I'm wondering where it comes from, because, like, that's just something that some of the old-timers and OGs of YouTube have been talking about, like, in the back rooms and whatever, but, like, not really. The way I portrayed it, it seems like a bunch of old, like, fucking mobsters, like, smoking cigars and in the back room talking about, you know, time's gone by, and that's not quite how it goes these days, but, you know, you all know that if you've been here for more than 5 minutes, so... it's a very interesting story. If true, it would certainly, like, lend itself to my perception of Kero the Wolf, that he hasn't quite redeemed himself. He's not quite the individual that's changed that people would like to think he is. He's probably in active contact with other zoophiles and Beast Forum members from, like, you know, his former associations, although that remains to be, like, you know, sort of substantiated by evidence. If this is true, though, like, that would definitely support that he's, like, you know, in contact with at least some of the zoophiles that he used to associate with, although Spank, they were relative newcomers. Like, they act like they were celebrity superstars, and in reality, you know, they're just two very awkward individuals with a diluted sense of self-importance. Kind of like Kero the Wolf now, because notice how Kero the Wolf, he seems like he's trying to cling to what little fame and legitimacy that he has left, and he honestly has none. And he's really trying to get back into the seat of prominence. But remember, and bear in mind, Kero the Wolf never really got to the seat of fandom that, like, he thought he would. He got, like, over 100,000 subscribers. I think it was, like, 103,000 subscribers before he was cut down from the knees because of his past actions catching up with him. But at the same time, like, he wasn't no PewDiePie. He wasn't no Game Grumps. He wasn't, like, well known to the point of millions of people, like, you know, looking at him. Even Majira Strawberry is struggling to break 1 million. I think he's got, like, 500,000 subscribers, which, for the furry fandom, that's really impressive numbers to me. But at the same time, it's important to note that, you know, like, you know, you don't have millions of subscribers. The furry fandom is relatively... It's still niche. I know there's just been back and forth about it being mainstream, but it's still a niche fandom. And, you know, just, like, you're lucky to get maybe 10,000 subscribers or 100,000 subscribers. You're really lucky to get 100,000 subscribers. But he was always, by my perception and by my sort of, like, assessment of him, he was always a lesser Majira Strawberry. And for him to suggest that anybody would go through that much effort just to nail his ass to the wall is laughable. He's got a diluted sense of self-importance, just like he has a diluted sense of reality, or lack thereof. But hey, that's something to be taken. So what can we really say at the end of the day here? Well, he DMCA'd Archive the Wolf for fairly petty reasons, Probably because Archive the Wolf had drawn so much, like, you know, so many eyes on them that was making Kero the Wolf look very bad, and probably because they happened to be an easy target for him. They were a relatively singular issue channel that was only existing to be a thorn in the side of Kero the Wolf and try to serve as a reminder that Kero the Wolf has deleted content of his own to try to distance himself from, like, his shady past. He has actively gaslighted the community and tried to offset any allegations against him. And need I remind you all, like, by his own words in that last statement, the police do not find you innocent or guilty. They decide if a crime, like, they have to decide whether a crime has been committed to, you know, justifiably arrest you. And you can be proven innocent in the court of law. For Kero the Wolf, he never went to court of law because, you know, the investigation in him was, like, closed. And what was known is that his parents did not cooperate with the police as far as his, you know, his electrical devices being confiscated from him. I call bullshit on that because he's definitely been making content over the past 2 years that he's been gone. And if he's been forced into silence by his legal advisors, then that would lead me to believe that he's, like, you know, he could be arrested again or face legal trouble, you know, if he were to say anything or do anything. So, you know, that doesn't speak to innocence. That speaks to, like, getting off on a technicality, like a loophole in the system. And it happens, you know? There are, like, he keeps pointing at, he tries to conflate, like, you know, whether or not you've been arrested or guilty as innocence, and innocence is not, that's not something that even the courts decide. It's like guilty or not guilty. You could conceivably do something, but, you know, it's obviously the responsibility of the prosecution to basically, you know, decide whether you've done so out of, like, and basically prove that you've done so beyond a shadow of a reasonable doubt. And so far, this whole crazy train that's been going on for a couple of years now, he's guilty. He's guilty of sin, but, you know, he presumably got off because the statute of limitations ran out. And yeah, the rest is history. He's going to continue to exist behind his paywall on Patreon and continue to soak up Patreon dollars from what patrons decide to, you know, buy into his content. And from what I can understand, his content is stuff that would have otherwise appeared on YouTube if not for the fact that all of this trouble began. And so we are left with his last and final statement. You know, not last and final, probably. He's probably going to open his mouth again and bring a bunch of, like, hateocracy back on him. But by that, he's going to continue to assert his innocence until the day he dies. Probably going to be carved on his tombstone as an epitaph when he grows old. And it will serve as a reminder to the rest of us that he was absolutely innocent, that we're all haters and trolls. Because that's absolutely what the reality is. No, it's not. The reality is that people are beginning to see him for the piece of shit he is, and he's getting his comeuppance, but he doesn't want to face his comeuppance, because that would mean that he was guilty of, you know, bestiality, and possibly even killing his dog Coda, if earlier chat logs can be believed, by his own words. And he's lied and denied so much throughout, you know, the past few years, ever since the trouble began, that any, like, veracity to his claims is out the window at this point. So, what does that mean for the rest of us now? If you are a supporter of Kero the Wolf or a defender of Kero the Wolf, well, good news for you. Your boy is on Patreon, and you can go ahead and subscribe to one of his patron tiers and enjoy his content to date. If you absolutely hate and dislike Kero the Wolf and everything he stands for and want him to face justice, well, bad news for you. He's probably never going to face justice for his crimes, and that could be chalked up to a combination of things. I would imagine that Snake Thing was much more culpable of wrongdoing than Kero the Wolf was, because Snake Thing, if you remember, he was molesting his own nephew. And in the eyes of a prosecutor, I would imagine that people will, like, you know, the prosecution will probably go after somebody that was doing a child than a dog. So cruelty to animals, you know, it's not quite as heavy as cruelty to another human being. And, you know, they probably forgot about Kero the Wolf and went after Snake Thing and managed to get him in hot water. And Snake Thing is currently going to be doing time for the next 25 years. So at least some justice came out from all this. In fact, a lot of zoophiles ended up facing justice at the end, but Kero the Wolf got off scot-free. You don't have to support him, though. You don't have to be his friend. You don't have to associate with the guy. But what is troubling is that Kero the Wolf will try to be a part of the furry fandom no matter what happens from this point forward, if his words can be believed. And that would mean, like, assuming a new identity, or maybe like adopting a new Twitter handle and building himself a new online profile. The problem with that is his face and his voice are very recognizable. So if he were to try to pull this off now, I'm not sure how far he'd get, but hey, crazier things have happened. People have tried to pull crazier things. Who knows? Maybe he's going to manage to pull it all off and be the man that he sees himself as. The, fallen from fair graces, dishonored, like, YouTuber that had some standing in the furry fandom, but was cut down in his prime. And good thing, too. I'd be very disappointed if he was still, like, going around gallivanting on YouTube today, and that everything just failed because, furry fandom failed to act. This is one of the few times that the furry fandom sort of got together and decided, hey, enough was enough. Enough is enough. We're not going to have this furry fucker in the fandom. And, like, we're not going to just, stand idle while he gets to walk around scot-free. However, some of the things that Kero the Wolf and, I was about to call him Nipples because of Deadwing Dork, like Kit the Soulless, like some things that they said about cancel culture is absolutely justifiably true, and I would definitely agree with it. But yeah, Kero the Wolf being the mouthpiece and the crusader against cancel culture, as well as Kit the Soulless trying to basically browbeat and like pass off this feel-goodsy video about how cancel culture is bad and how you should be a better person. That doesn't really serve to like help the cause of combating cancel culture, What that does, all it does is piss me off that they would try to latch onto that to create an air of plausible deniability and to try to divert any, any responsibility for past actions. And so, basically say, hey, but that's all in the past. We can move on. We're better than this. We don't have to buy into hate. And it's like, you're not really going to move the furry fandom with that kind of message, and now it's going to actually hurt people that are legitimate victims of cancel culture in the future because of mouthpieces like you that try to inject yourself into, a cause and try to stand for it. It's going to basically make anybody else look guilty as sin when they're possibly innocent. And, legitimate cancel culture pertains more to problematic opinions in politics than it does legitimate acts of animal cruelty and anything else that could get you arrested. He conflates the whole the reason we have police in the first place is for these reasons alone, and it's no, dude, people can form judgments and opinions about anybody at any given time for any reason or no reason. It really depends on the individual and the circumstances in which case it happens, you don't get to just say that we have to automatically accept you back because cancel culture is bad and that we should reflect and be avenues of positivity. World don't work that way. There's a hell of a lot of hate in the world. But I personally would like to be more on the side of positivity and just say to you all, please don't threaten, dox, harass, or attack Kero the Wolf or any of his associates. Just reserve your own judgments, talk amongst yourselves, talk amongst your friends. You can be an avenue of change for positivity in your own way, and at the same time, hold your own opinions to be true as you see them to be. You don't need somebody like Kero the Wolf to tell you to do that, and you don't need somebody like me to do that, but, maybe we could serve as reminders in a sense. As for Kero the Wolf, well, hopefully he will fade into obscurity. His vast, corrupt future is draining away as we speak, and I will be fucking damned if he's going to come back to YouTube and act like nothing's happened. But there's not a whole lot I can do if he did, besides make another video making fun of him behind his back. But anyway, whatever. I think I've spent quite a bit of time talking about the subject. I just wanted to tell you all that I had some lingering reservations and, sort of topics of interest that were sort of sitting at the back of my head that I really just wanted to get out there and share with you all. Because it's certainly a compelling story. I mean, what would Kero the Wolf gain out of sticking his neck out for Toggle, is my question, if the story is to be believed. And, what was the whole correlation between the two to begin with? Because my fixation has always been on the people that were closest to Kero the Wolf and some of his associates that wound up in jail. Toggle, he's somebody that's only known to me as sort of a profile online and a voice and his demeanor. I don't know him personally. I don't know anything that they've been guilty of in the past. I know Doug's been guilty of certain things, the golden retriever guy, Sphinx. But Toggle, not so much. And if I hear anything else, I'll, just, do what I usually do. Come out here and share my 2 cents on the matter and sort of try to create a dialogue with you all that we can sort of go over in the comments section. But yeah, Kero the Wolf will continue to exist as he does, and hopefully from here on, the furry fandom will not forget, because letting a dog fucker walk is just absolutely disappointing as all hell. So before I went ahead and ended the video here, I just wanted to provide some sort of a conclusion to all of this, because this sort of grand saga, there's been a lot of back and forths, zigzags, ups and downs, and the rabbit hole seems to go far deeper than any of us would have otherwise suspected, and the people like Archive the Wolf that have taken upon themselves to really go out of their way and really get into the nitty-gritty of things and to correlate details that people otherwise would not have had, knowledge of or would have noticed under normal circumstances. I applaud their efforts, but at the same time, at the end of the day, Kero the Wolf is still going to be here. He's going to not ever face justice for his past actions. However, I can certainly take solace in the fact that any fame or recognition that he's managed to accrue over the years is vastly draining away as we speak. The credibility that he once had is no more, and, honestly, his fan base, now, the people that are either young enough or nostalgic enough to sort of buy into the suggestions that he's innocent, they are going to drain and fade away in time. I am convinced. And if they don't, I'm going to continue making videos, on occasion, as a reminder to people that, hey, this shit happened, okay? And Kero the Wolf can jump up and down, scream to the world that he's innocent, but I am not convinced. I am absolutely convinced of his guilt. And, the chat logs are one thing, but honestly, his behavior was more of an indicator to me that he had something to hide. And, it's not just that. He's not just some dog fucker. It goes far worse than that. He is an absolutely horrible human being. He has, routinely thrown people that tried to help him under the bus. People that were sincere with him, he had taken advantage of and thrown to the side. People that were once his friends, like Majira Strawberry and Betamax, he wantonly just, cast aside. And for what? He just seems to be focused on one thing, getting people to like him, getting people to, buy into his content, and getting people to, support him because he wants the fame and recognition and, popular status that he once had. Thankfully, he never rose above Majira Strawberry. In fact, he was a lesser Majira Strawberry as far as my estimation goes. And, the fact that he perpetuates this sort of notoriety around him today, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. He tries to paint himself off as the victim while also at the same time picking fights with people online and, being an asshat to boot. And, yeah, even the big names in the furry fandom are not giving him the time of day. And that's one thing that I can take solace in. But there will be no justice for Coda. There will be no justice for any of the other animals that Kero the Wolf possibly harmed in the pursuit of his sexual gratification. But, yeah, I'll be damned if I stay quiet about him just coming back to YouTube, waltzing in like nothing ever happened. And to his defenders, hey, I'm just going to quote Kero the Wolf here, you believe what you want. I can certainly believe that there's a, space colony on Mars right now that's, harboring alien Martians that are planning an attack on the Earth. Okay, I can believe anything I want. But at the end of the day, there's sufficient evidence just floating around publicly available, and it only takes 2 brain cells to rub together to sort of see that Kero the Wolf has been caught in lies more recently, but he's also been caught in lies when this whole thing began. And if you want to take his own words as, proof, then he's contradicted himself, several times. Not just in the Cathorix or the Ashley Zoe Fox interviews, but just, in public statements or anything that he said online. Even things that he said in private with people that questioned him on the whole situation as it unfolded. So, yeah, in the face of all that, if you want to fly in the face of all that, hey, whatever. We got flat earthers, people that still believe that the earth is flat for whatever reason. Doesn't mean that their credibility holds up if, you have any extensive conversation with them. But hey, you can believe what you want. You can support the guy if you want. His Patreon, I just checked just now, today, it's got 29. He's lost 4 patrons. He used to have 33. I can only hope that that goes down to maybe 15 to 0. And not just because I want him to wallow in self-pity and just be cast off by the world. It's more the fact that for his behavior more recently, how he has this self-righteous attitude and this borderline sociopathic mannerisms about him, I can only hope that his vast corrupt future is draining away as we speak. So, what can we say now? Well, as far as, like, afterthoughts about everything that's happened to date, I'm convinced that he's in active communication with at least some zoophiles out there, like Toggle, as an example. Again, still connecting the dots in that one, but, it stands to reason that a marginalized subgenre of, like, a bigger community would probably have more, like, sort of association with each other than the rest of us would. Because we're not marginalized. We might be marginalized by mainstream. That means that we have more of a, sense of communion with our fellow furs. But at the same time, like, zoophiles are even more marginalized, and rightfully so, because the behaviors they engage in are absolutely disgusting and abhorrent. Also, I can't help but just express this as an aside. PK Russell made a video at the end of March, and I didn't watch it until more recently, but he finally admitted that Kero the Wolf is guilty. Like, granted, let's just bear in mind, he made one video stating that Kero the Wolf was innocent. They made 3 videos after that backpedaling and addressing criticisms from his own community on, like, how bullshit his, videos were. But at least the boy finally came around and could admit what we all knew for a while. I definitely respect PK Russell more for that. I might even subscribe to him. Ooh, now I'm getting crazy. But yeah. It's surprising, like, even PK Russell, who was willing to fall on this sword and absolutely defend himself when criticism push came to shove, he finally admitted that, Kero the Wolf was guilty. It's surprising. I can't tell if he's, like, jumping on the bandwagon, or he legitimately had a moment to himself, where he's just sort of like, okay, maybe I was wrong. But I can definitely respect the boy a little bit more for that. But, yeah, zoophiles continue to exist out there and will continue to do so, and it really requires a sense of constant vigilance from the community to sort of keep them out of the fandom. I do not want to be associated with dogfuckers, okay? At least of the, like, feral variety. The artwork that I sort of look into, that's of the anthropomorphic variety, and that's works of fiction, okay? As far as I can tell, like, dog people do not exist in general society. They might be depicted in media, like, works of fiction, but they do not exist, and animals cannot consent, okay? Period. And young adults can't consent, anybody under the age of 18, alright? That should be a no-brainer. We have laws and regulations to support that. What also sort of, like, grinds my gears is the fact that Kero the Wolf seems to think that because the investigation into him failed, there will be a link in the description for Archive the Wolf's video on why the investigation into him failed. He seems to think that they're moral arbiters, and that in spite of the fact that something certifiably happened, that because the police didn't arrest him, that automatically makes him innocent. And, that's not really the job of the police to do. The police of the job, the job of the police is to verify whether or not a crime has been committed, and to arrest the perpetrators. And if crime hasn't been committed, or if there's no, if the statute of limitations ran out, or other, legal loopholes that exist in the law, and in Kero the Wolf's case, it would be New York law and Pennsylvania law, they're not going to arrest you, alright? The prosecution determines guilt or innocence, and really it's guilty or not guilty as far as a verdict goes, because it's, certifiable that you could have committed the crime, but beyond a shadow of a reasonable doubt cannot be proven, so therefore you are not guilty. He never was arrested, number one, and number two, nothing that surrounded him as far as the investigation goes ever went to trial. So, he seems to conflate, prosecution and, the legal loopholes or the law as they exist. If they confiscated all his devices, like he said they did, then they must have had sufficient proof, that some wrongdoing had occurred, to present this to a magistrate in the state of Pennsylvania and get a warrant to confiscate his devices and investigate them. And the fact that the FBI wasted time on this, okay. Whatever you say, Kero. Anyway, hopefully this will be the last Kero the Wolf video I make for a long damn time. I'm not going to be, scrutinizing over all of his activities. However, I might divert, my focus towards the Zeroth and Thou individuals, and, well, something I never really followed up on. Whatever happened to all the other zoophiles? Kero the Wolf was the big fish of the pond, only because of his, internet fame existing on YouTube. Whatever happened to all the other, like, zoophiles that were caught in that ring? A lot of them fade into the darkness, but a good number of them either got arrested or went to jail. So might try to, like, you know, dust off the material I had on file and just, you know, provide some sort of a timeline into all of this, you know. But as far as I care to talk about all this, I think the Kero the Wolf case is closed. He is guilty, but he will not face justice for his crimes, and he will continue to walk a free man, and he's going to continue to try to be a part of this fandom. But, you know, with his face being exposed, his voice being exposed, and his persona and fursuit, you know, ubiquitously, like, recognized by the general public, I'm going to scratch my head and wonder what he's going to pull in the near future as far as, like, gaining some sort of association with the rest of the fandom. So, with that being said, I'm going to continue what little bit there is left of this video. One last thing before I go. Kero the Wolf, enough is enough. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Do not come back to Furry YouTube. Do not come back to, like, you know, Furry Fandom at large. Go back to Patreon, hide behind your fucking paywall, and stay the fuck away from the rest of us, okay? You are done. Enough is enough, okay? Stop waffling around the internet. Stop pissing off everybody in general. Like, we're done, okay? I'm certainly done. I'm going to be done for a little while now. Let's see how long it takes me to, like, make another video about Kero the Wolf. And it better not be next week. It better not be next month. And that better not be next year. Because I'm just going to be like, dude, we talked about all this. I ain't going to do it again, alright? But watch. He's going to do something particularly crazy, and it's going to draw me back in, just like how he keeps complaining that he gets drawn back in, even though he's a dumb piece of shit that keeps picking fights with people. And, like, honestly, he's the guy that I, like, you know, we love to hate now. Because he keeps, like, not only can he not sort of, like, fess up to his own wrongdoings, or at least, for once in his godforsaken life, be honest and straightforward with the rest of us. He has to go over the top about every damn little thing and decide, like, hey, you know, he lives in a different reality from the rest of us. Well, as far as I'm concerned, I live in the natural reality of being born in. You know, it is April 20th, 2021. The time is now 5:45 p.m., and I can safely say that I am definitely within the realm of reality. What reality that Kero the Wolf lives on, I don't know, Tal75, fuck if I know, but he clearly does not share in the perceptions of the rest of us, and everything that he says has to be taken with a fistful of salt. Go ahead and try that. Every time that Kero the Wolf says something, go ahead and take a fistful of salt. You'll die of a heart attack within 3 minutes. Guarantee it. But, yeah, I think I've spoken to great length on the subject matter, and I think I need something a little harder than Pepsi to sort of wash all this down. I'm thinking whiskey, maybe, you know, some Guinness, maybe some absinthe, something hard. But, yeah, let's go ahead and hope that we don't hear from Kero the Wolf for a long time. Anyway, this is Tujo Panda signing off. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, guys. I certainly found it an interesting experience to sort of relive everything I've been reliving for the past 2 years. But, yeah, I'm going to divert my focus to bigger and better things from here on out. So, till next time, guys, take care and peace. I hope you all have a better one.